Hello and welcome back to part B of Business Owner's Mindset. In part A, we talked about core ideologies and the envisioned future, core values, core purpose. This session, we're going to talk about business plans and particularly the sort of the initial or startup business plan of your law firm. And so just as a refresher, you saw this pyramid where we talked about in part A, the previous video, the mission and core values and the core purpose of your law firm, of who you are, how you operate, and your identity are fundamental to everything, your values and your purpose. And then from that, you build your business plan, what kind of business you're going to operate. And that's what this session is going to be talking about, the business plan. And we'll talk a little bit about a couple steps up that ladder, that pyramid is the annual business plan and budgeting. We'll touch on that a little bit. And sometimes I use that term interchangeably, business plan. I could be talking about the annual business plan or budgeting, or I refer to or talk about the business plan in terms of your initial startup business plan. So I'll try to differentiate the two because they are definitely different. All right, so next slide. So with the business owner's mindset, you realize, as we said in part A, your law firm is a business. So what does that mean? It means you need to think about your business model and what kind of value you are creating for your client. How are you helping your client? Um, what is your market and who are your ideal clients? We'll talk about these terms in a little bit. And you need to think about all the different roles and processes to run your business. Things just don't happen. You have to think about how they happen. And part of that is being able or being willing to innovate and be smart about the processes. So, and that's all of what goes into a business plan. So that's why we're talking about business plans and the business owner's mindset. So there's a couple of different ways to go about creating a business plan. There's a traditional approach, I'll call it traditional, but you might create a 6, 8, 12, 20 page business plan. We'll talk about that in a little bit, that what all the different categories that go into that. But then there's also a lean business plan or sort of a little more innovative or uh, simpler process that is all done on one page. And I'll talk about that and I'll reference some of these myshingle.com and Canva and also Clio's guide. So we'll talk about that. So and with the business plan, the takeaway from this slide is you do a multi-page version or you can do a one-page lean version. So let's look at what Clio has, what they offer. And Clio, as you may know, is a law practice management software to help you manage your different matters. Some of you may be using Clio to help you manage your different cases. So they have put out, and you can get this free, a guide to starting a law firm. And they, as you can see from their table of contents, they have an introduction to a law firm business plan, how to create a law firm budget, and all the different steps of thinking about a business plan. So um, and this slide might be small, but you can see over on the left-hand side there, this is they lay out the different, in a graphical form, they lay out the different parts of a law firm business plan. An executive summary, a firm description, market analysis, like market analysis, who are your clients, where are you going to find them, um, how might they find you, next section might be organizational and management overview, how your firm's organized. If it's a solo firm, that would be simpler. The services you provide, your marketing strategy, financial plan, how much revenue do you need to generate each month and then annually, and then your startup budget of what you need to buy a laptop, you need to have a cell phone, a mobile phone, and what those costs are, whatever your startup costs might be. So those are the different categories. So that's one example that you can get some guidance from Clio, their how to start up a law firm, and I'll make some information available to find that link and get that free for yourself. Another example on the right is a example of a multi-page business plan, similar, but it just shows you the different categories that go into a business plan. The vision and mission statement, which is what we talked about in part A, business structure, owner's responsibility, target market, all those different things, which are pricing, how are you going to price your services and your fees, and a SWOT analysis. I'll get to that a little bit later in this session, but SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that you may be familiar with that, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So those are some examples of the more traditional multi-page business plan and what goes into it. Uh, in contrast, I wanted to point you to one great resource, and that's myshingle.com. And that's specifically Carolyn Elephant. She's the person depicted on her webpage there at myshingle.com. And she wrote the book Solo by Choice. She's a great resource. You can find her on the web at her website, and she's very active on LinkedIn, and she puts out a lot of really good material specifically for solo and small law firms. And on her webpage, you can see a link to free resources. I've got it circled in red. You go to that link, and then you find additional material, 152 free tools and resources to start and operate your law firm. And she's got links to business plans, she got links to creating your website, and a whole lot more that don't show up on this screenshot. So my point here is that I strongly encourage you to go check out myshingle.com, explore what she has made available. You may want to buy her book, and also start following her on LinkedIn, and you'll get a lot of really good material from her. She puts it out there for free. So here's a slide that Carolyn Elephant pushes in her myshingle.com and some of her material, but it's a lean business plan. The idea is that it puts everything down on one page, and it asks you questions that force you to think about the services you provide, how you provide them, how clients find you, and how you're going to find clients. So, for instance, on Unfair Advantage, it asks the question, this template asks the question, what separates you from competitors? What makes you ahead of the pack? And so that's a good question as you think about your law firm, how you're marketing yourself to your clients, whether they be court-appointed clients or to privately retained clients. Customer segment over here to the right, create 3 or 4 personas of the people you can help. Visualize these people who will turn to you for solutions. So this is the concept of the ideal client, and it makes you think about, okay, who are the clients that need my help, and who are the clients that I want to work with? So as you are able to visualize them and to describe them, it helps you focus your firm to do the work for them, and helps them make sure there's a good match. So you've got a good understanding of who your ideal client is. The other thing, just I'll point out, I won't go through every category, but channels, how will you reach your target consumer, or in your case, client? Direct marketing, social media, ads. So in a court-appointed case, maybe it's more clear, but to the extent that you have privately retained clients, you need to think about, how are clients going to find you? Is it through your website? Is it through leaving your business card in diners and restaurants? Or is it some other way? Is it talking at churches and community centers about your services, and through education, community education? But it just makes you think about, okay, how am I making myself known in the community, and how can clients find me? I mean, one basic principle is you want to make it easy for clients to find you, whatever way that might be. And then the other thing here on the bottom, talking about cost structure and revenue streams. Cost structure, basically the idea, what are your expenses? What do you have to pay out every month, whether it be in rent or your different subscriptions you have, or things you have once a year, your bar dues, your malpractice insurance, things like that. And then revenue streams, where's your revenue coming from? Where do you want your revenue to come from? Maybe it's one-third court-appointed work, one-third private retained clients, and one-third through subscription pricing of long-term retained clients. I don't know, but just thinking about where your revenue is coming from, and that's all on this one page. You don't have to spend days and weeks doing it. You can pencil it in and be agile and have something to work with that forces you to think through some of these important questions. So that's one example. So I mentioned the idea of the client persona or the ideal client, and this I want to point you to a great resource, just as I mentioned, myshingle.com. Another great resource is lawyerist.com. Lawyerist.com is a great resource for solo and small firms. And on the left is one of the I guess a sheet that they put out that makes you think about the ideal client. You know, what is on their mind? What keeps them up at night? Who are they? Their person, their entity, what's their background, their demographics that you care about? What problems do they have? What would they change if they could? And where's the help? Where do they go for information? Who do they seek for advice? And so, to the extent that you're able to describe this ideal client, you can say, is my law firm approachable to them, accessible to them? Will they find me? If um, they get their information from the yellow pages and you're advertising on a website, they're not going to find you. That's an extreme example, but just thinking about the ideal client and making sure your law firm is set up to serve that ideal client. So go to lawyers.com, you get more information from them, and here's their website that you should check out. I strongly encourage you. And they put out a book, the Small Law Firm Roadmap, Small Firm Roadmap, that is all about, as I highlighted here, there's a healthier way to manage a small law firm. All the principals at lawyers.com had been practicing attorneys, and they put out material to have a healthier business, healthier clients, and a healthier you. So great information there. A lot of it is free. They do coaching for a fee, but a lot of their information is free. Great material at lawyers.com. I encourage you to seek that out. So, and I know this is tiny as well, but the other thing, in addition to talking about ideal clients, to help you think about your business plan and making sure your business is addressed, is created or formed and operates in a way that helps and attracts the ideal clients, is to think about a SWOT analysis. And that's a self-assessment in terms of what are your strengths and weaknesses for yourself or for your firm, but then also looking at opportunities and threats external to your firm. So you, it may be hard to read, but on the left-hand side there, I did a SWOT analysis for the law office of Mark Atkinson, PLLC, and I'll try to read these. I won't go through everything, but one of the strengths I had in my firm that I had 25 years of consulting experience. I didn't have any major debt. I had some freedom and flexibility with that. Um, I'm connected to being a Central grad. I had access to the alumni network. Um, my tendency is to be client focused, exist for the benefit of the client. Those are just some of the strengths that I brought. Weaknesses, um, I when I started out, I had 0 years of legal experience. I right out of law school. I did have some I guess, in-house counsel type work and consulting. I worked closely with an attorney, but I was right out of law school. So a weakness was I didn't have any experience that I could talk about. Uh, Another weakness, I was not planning to work full time. You know, for some people that might be, for some potential clients that could be an issue, but I wanted to really limit to a part-time practice. So those are just some of the strengths and weaknesses that I have put down on paper for myself. Some of the opportunities and threats. An opportunity, and again, my law practice was focused on small businesses and nonprofits. So an opportunity, I perceived a client rich environment. That is, I think there are a lot of small businesses, a lot of nonprofits that need legal help. I think I could differentiate myself from others that I'm specifically wanting to work with mom and pop shops, small businesses, and smaller nonprofits. A threat is there's I could be perceived as a privileged old white guy, and what do you know about my nonprofit? What do you know about my small business? You've never done this. So that's the perception, and maybe that's as much internal as external. And then there's also plenty of, if you Google small business attorneys in Durham, North Carolina, you get a lot listed, and maybe they're my competition, maybe they're not. So on the one hand, I felt there were a lot of clients out there that needed services. On the other hand, there's actually appear to be a lot of attorneys that purport to provide those services. So I think there's a lot of clients, but there's also potentially a lot of competition as well. So that's just a quick look at what a SWOT analysis is. And I think it's helpful to make you identify your strengths, your weaknesses, and also what the market environment is. Are there a lot of clients in the field that you want to work with, and how can you target those clients that you want to work with, and who's your competition? So that's part of what that SWOT analysis does, something you should encourage you to consider doing. So speaking of encourage you to consider doing, as you absorb what was in part A, business owner's mindset, thinking about your values and your purpose and what your long-term vision is, take some time to do that, to think, and then take some time to plan. Take one of those business plan tools where there's the traditional multi-page, at least you have the categories there, or that one-page template, the lean business canvas, and sketch out your business plan. Who are your ideal clients? What are your streams of revenue? Where's your income coming from? How are you going to make money? And how does all that fit your mission, your vision, and your values? One thing we haven't talked about, but is an incredibly great tool, I think specifically something for this, you can use ChatGPT to help you create a business plan. And the more you have better prompts, the better questions you ask ChatGPT, and you iterate and you improve on it, the better business plan you have. So obviously do be careful in terms of what information you give ChatGPT about yourself. And you can make it anonymous, or you can describe yourself as lawyer A, or however you want to do that. But you don't want to give a lot of private information about yourself, but you can describe yourself and what you want to do, and you can do a back and forth with ChatGPT. Don't end it at one back and forth, but go back and forth, and you'll be amazed at what you'll get. It won't be 100% perfect, but it might get you 85, 90% of the way there. So ChatGPT is a great tool to use to help you create a business plan. And one last thing I'll say about ChatGPT, a friend of mine mentioned that the best way to think about using it is the 10-80-10 rule. So the first 10% is you and your brain thinking about the prompts, the questions, framing what ChatGPT is going to do. So that's the first 10%. The middle 80% is that model, ChatGPT, doing what it does, is creating the content. And the final 10% is you again, revising it, editing it, improving it. So it's not all 100% ChatGPT. It's 10-80-10. You're the first 10%. It's the middle 80%. Then you're the final 10% improving it and editing it. So that's a good rule of thumb, really, anytime you use ChatGPT. So think about it, plan it, and then start doing it. And some of you all have been operating your law firm for, as I mentioned, a year, 3 years, 5 years, 20 years. You've been doing it. You've done a lot of this work. So it's not about starting over again, but maybe it is about kind of rethinking what you're doing, and there may be some things that you've learned from this session that would be helpful. So as we head towards the end here of this session, as a business owner, you get to define what success looks like. You're the owner, you're the visionary, you decide what success looks like, you and no one else. And your budget, we're going to talk about budget in a minute, your budget tells your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. So my question is, have you ever created a personal budget? Do you know what you need each month to live? What your grocery bills tend to be, what all your different expenses are, and your rent? Have you thought through that? Have you thought through a business plan, a business budget? What your monthly and annual expenses are. The next slide is a sample, and again, it's going to be tiny, but it's a sample that you can work from, and basically each row is a different category of um, costs. That might be liability insurance, it might be rent, it might be payroll expenses, payroll taxes, cell phone bill, um, different costs for subscriptions. Maybe you're subscribing to Clio or MyCase or different law practice management tools. So this business expense budget, uh, the rows are the different categories, and then the columns are the different months. So it's a helpful tool to think through this. If you haven't done this, I encourage you to do it to see what your monthly and annual costs are going to be. There's some things that hit every month, and there's some things that hit once a year. So this is a good place to start in terms of planning for the year. And we're halfway through the year, but it's never too late to kind of lay it out. And it'll be a helpful tool for cash flow management, which will actually be our next video, number 2 in the series. So cash flow management, we'll talk about that more in the next session. So that's it for this session, and that's a picture of me and my sister Halloween. I think it might have been 1969, maybe plus or minus that. So we're wrapping up Business Owner's Mindset, and I'd love if you have more questions or want to talk to me directly. I'd love to chat with you because I love this stuff. This is what I do. I'm happy to talk more about it. So get ready for the next video on cash flow management. Thanks.